longest government shutdown in U.S. history is over, and lawmakers are shifting their focus to the Jeffrey Epstein investigation after Democrats released a small batch of emails from the convicted sex offender's estate. The documents include never-before-seen emails that raise questions about President Donald Trump's knowledge of Epstein's conduct. Shortly after the initial release, News Nation reports that Republican lawmakers released tens of thousands of emails from Epstein's estate. Trump, who signed legislation reopening the government late Wednesday night, did not address the emails during the Oval Office ceremony. On social media, he accused Democrats of leaking the files to, quote, distract from their role in the shutdown, unquote. House Speaker Mike Johnson said a vote to compel the Department of Justice to release all Epstein-related files could take place as soon as next week. Now is the time to join us on Hello Houston. What do you think of the Epstein file? Are you for the release? Or, as Trump stated, is this just a distraction? What didn't Democrats ask for the files to be released when Joe Biden? Why didn't Democrats ask for the files to be released when Joe Biden was president? Again, 713-440-8870.
Yeah, I do believe there is a distraction going on. Mm-hmm. I don't know that it's coming from the direction the president was alluding to. I think it may be coming from the other direction. Do I think there is some there? I think there is. Do I think it will be what we're expecting? I don't know. I don't know what's actually there. But boy, oh boy, the White House is working very hard to keep these things locked down. Why? That has to be the question we wonder. Why is it so important to not just let the files out? I saw Mike Johnson talking yesterday, and he was saying, well, you know, all these have been let out, so now the Epstein file is pretty much mute, so sure, why not just release it? Well, okay, then do it. Then just do it. Then release it, you know? If it's so moot, why have you worked so hard so long to keep it locked down? Yeah. I'm curious what people think about it. We've talked an awful lot about it here on the show. So what are your thoughts about the Epstein file? Do you think we need to release it? We need to see what's in there? Or do you think with the estate releasing all this documentation and the different reports and some of the victims coming out and speaking, that we pretty much are getting the same information we get from the files? What do you think? 713-440-8870. I believe there's a lot more to be learned.
You know, I often think that something that we look at when we looked at elected officials, they talk about safety and they talk about making sure that we are keeping our communities safe. And then I look at this situation, and it is so sad because I watched a documentary about this, the Epstein files, or not the files, but the situation, what went down. And you look at it, and there were a lot of very powerful people that took advantage of very young girls. Mm-hmm. And I ask myself, if you are truly looking out for the safety of young women and young girls, then you would want justice. And the way you can bring justice to this is by releasing the names, opening the files, and say, here it is. Here are the people that were involved that we know were abusing young women. Mm-hmm. Do it. This is not about politics. This is about young women that were taken advantage of. And we now have very powerful people, men, that can do something about it, and they're not.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, the point being exactly what you're saying, and I keep harping on, Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell did not do this for themselves alone. They did it for this network of other people. Who were the other criminals in this activity? Why are they not being called to justice? And that's the part that bothers me in all of this. A lot of the focus is on Trump and the Trump White House and what did Trump know and when did he know?
Republicans and Democrats, and what are they saying about each other?
Regardless of all of that, you're guilty if you behaved in this manner, and justice should be shown to you. You should, or I'm phrasing it wrong. You should be held accountable for your behaviors.
Yes.
Regardless of who you are, what your economic status is, all of that. My words are not coming out right at all as I try and explain this. And so that's my concern here, is that there are people that perpetrated these crimes that are getting no flack back. And we know who they are. Their names are listed in these files. These women have testified to who they are. They are not speaking publicly about it for fear of retribution, but government officials and elected officials should be able to speak out and say, These people need to be held accountable.
And that's the thing, is a lot of these young women were very young. I mean, you talk about middle schoolers, freshmen in high school. Now they are grown 40-year-old women. And this went on for a very long time. And you look at the impact that this had on so many, and it is a lot of young women that were a part of this whole scheme, this whole web of sexual assault and harassment. It took a major toll on their lives. And there are people...
Oh, they'll never be the same.
And there are these men that did all these things, and women, and that are very powerful and wealthy, and they're still going on with their lives. I mean, Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, we know that they obviously have had to taken the fall for this. But at the end of the day, there's more to this story.
Yeah. As we're seeing on YouTube, one comment comes in: anyone in those files needs to be held accountable regardless of party affiliation. I agree. 713-440-8870. David from Friendswood is on the line. David, what are you thinking today?
I'm thinking y'all are onto something. I'm pretty far right, and I understand y'all are sort of on the left. We're totally on the same side on this. I haven't heard it mentioned, but Trump called Boebert and put her under a ton of pressure to withdraw her support for Massey's bill to release the files. That's nuts.
He didn't bring her into the Oval Office. He didn't meet her in her office. He brought her into the Situation Room, the most confidential room on the planet, to have a discussion with her. Kind of makes you wonder, huh, David?
Yeah, I didn't know that part. Yeah. It's so sus. And I mean, he was going full force against Massey, who, this guy was MAGA for a long time, not 100%, but he knows the base loves Massey, and yet he's still going full force against him. So he's going against what his base wants. And the only thing that can explain is that Massey is leading the charge to get the Epstein files released, and Donald Trump has something to hide in it.
David, you mentioned that you are far right, correct? Did I get that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So does this take the sheen off Donald Trump the way he's behaving? What will this do, do you think, to a lot of those Trump supporters out there?
Well, the sheen's been off Trump for a long time. It kind of, the further right you go, the less sheeny he is. But, a lot of us were sort of upbeat, optimistic when he won. I'd say about 2 months after, hopes were kind of dashed, and now they're gone. They're completely gone, especially after the Iran strike. This guy he's part of the Uniparty. He's just no different than any of them, and he was supposed to be the most different. And I mean, everyone worried about him like he's just so different. He's going to ruin everything, and he's ruined nothing as far as we're concerned.
David, let me ask you one more quick question. I know it's a little off topic here, but I'm curious since we have you here. When the next presidential election comes, and believing that Trump will not be on the ballot, but probably a Trump acolyte would be on the ballot, would you consider voting for a more liberal candidate, or would you stick Republican?
I will probably vote for whoever hates Israel the most. I think they have our country in a vice grip. They control our foreign policy. And now, especially with the Trump administration, our domestic policy, the college campuses and stuff. I'm sort of a one-issue guy until this is fixed. So if I voted for Jill Stein this last time, I didn't vote for Trump, but I am far right. But I voted for Jill Stein because she's the only one who wanted to stop a genocide that we're funding. I think a lot of people are similar to me in that.
David, thank you very much for calling and sharing with us, and continue to listen to the show. I don't classify us as far left. I think we are pretty centrist here most of the time, and I hope that you feel that way too. David, thank you for calling. Let's move on to Brian from Montrose. Brian, what's on your mind?
Good afternoon. This is Brian from Montrose. I don't believe it's so much about the president. Now, I am a diehard Democrat, okay? But good.
We get them from both ends of the spectrum on our show. Thank you.
I know. I don't think it's so much about the president. I think it's about all those other powerful people that could be in that file.
Yep.
And I think it worked both ways with Trump and also with Biden. Those are personal friends of theirs, and they really don't want that out there. If you can just kind of, put it under the carpet for a couple of more years until another crisis comes along, like the government shutdown, God forbid.
Yeah.
So that's basically how I feel about it. And the thing is, if you really want to put this to bed, Release everything. You're the
Right.
president. You can do that. You can strike boats in the water. You can bomb Iraq, all this other kind of stuff. You can obviously direct your DOJ to release everything and just put it to bed. Or I shouldn't put it that way. That's probably the wrong statement.
Brian, I know what you mean, though, but thank you for sharing that. And I think you are definitely onto something there. The concern that I look at is if, in fact, Trump is not necessarily a perpetrator that is revealed in these files, that people will feel like, well, then we don't need to continue this. But the point is they are probably friends, associates. There's a reason that some faction is working so hard not to release this information. And even if they are not necessarily named specifically, there is concern there. And I think they should be released, and we should know across the board who it is.
And we're going to head to Kelly from the Woodlands. Kelly, welcome to Hello Houston.
Hi there. I just want to make a comment about the file situation. And that is, if we don't release the files, then what it does is send a message to everybody that did atrocities to young women and girls, and it allows them to keep thinking they can keep doing it because they didn't get caught. And that is unbelievably a bad message to send to people that did awful things to a vulnerable population of people.
Thank you, Kelly. And to the other side of that, it also sends a message to young girls that your voice doesn't matter. We're not going to believe it. Justice won't happen. You don't have to say things. And so I think that just the message across the board is it speaks very loudly. And so I agree, Kelly, that this needs to be resolved.
Thank you very much
Thank
for
you,
calling
Kelly,
in.
for giving us a call.
There's a lot to this, and I know we're not anywhere near done talking about this story. I do hope that the next time or in the near future when we talk about it, it's because these files have been released.
And I do think it's very interesting that we heard from people that listen to Hello Houston from the left and the right and in the middle. And I think there's an across-the-board consensus. Release the Epstein files.
You know,